In today's episode, you'll learn how you can overcome Podfade. You know that feeling when you first start a podcast and you're full of hope and you're super excited to get started, and then it just gets really overwhelming and then you kind of fade away? That's Podfade. Podfade happens for many reasons, and usually the most common reason is overwhelm. There's a lot of moving parts to a podcast, and it can feel really difficult to fit all of those tasks in to your existing schedule. So in this episode, we're going to help you break through the overwhelm so that you can overcome Podfade. Strategy number 1 is to create SMART goals. SMART stands for specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. Having SMART goals can reduce the overwhelm because you know exactly what you're aiming for. And that's really helpful when you're trying to come up with a consistent publishing strategy. A really vague goal would be write some topics, whereas a SMART goal could be write 5 topics about dog walking entrepreneurs in the next 2 weeks. Strategy number 2 is to have a clear content strategy. Maybe you started a podcast with a topic that you're super passionate about and you want to talk about all day long. While that's great, it might be difficult to translate that passion into different topics for your show. So having a clear strategy and having lots of ideas before you need them is going to help you reduce some overwhelm. So an easy way to do that is to keep a running list of topics and even ideas for guests that you can bring onto your show so that on days where you're not feeling terribly inspired to come up with new ideas, you've got an entire list at your fingertips. Strategy number 3 is to create a realistic publishing schedule. Life happens, maybe you've already got a lot going on. It doesn't mean you have to publish every week or every other week if it doesn't make sense for you. If you're trying to fit too much into your life, that's when overwhelm happens, and unfortunately something's got to give and it might end up being your podcast. So take a look at all of the obligations you have around work and life and see what's realistic. So for my own show, I was looking at my schedule and I just had a lot of work obligations and I have a family. And so it made the most sense for me to do 12 episode seasons with about a 6 to 8 week break in between them. And that helped me reduce the overwhelm. It allowed me time to plan out episode topics and record and get everything out when I said I would. So consider seasons every week, every other week, whatever works for your life. Strategy number 4 is to create systems. Having systems in place reduces decision fatigue because you have a list of steps laid out in front of you and all you have to do is follow them. A great way to use systems is to create something called SOPs, which stands for Standard Operating Procedures. Having SOPs means all you have to do is to open up the document, read through the steps, and make sure that you do everything you need to do to get your episode published. And the great thing about SOPs is that it's a living, breathing document. You can create that as you are creating all the steps that you need to publish your episode on a consistent basis. And if you need to modify or change it, you certainly can. The next strategy, which relates to the last one, is to create templates. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. If you have an episode artwork template that works really well, why not use that over and over again? All you have to do is swap out some graphics, change up the text, and you're good to go. You can even create templates for things like your intro, your outro, your episode titles, your episode description, even social media captions. All of these are fine to create templates with, especially if it can help you save time and reduce overwhelm. Strategy number 6 is don't be afraid to experiment. So going back to the idea of having a publishing schedule that works for you, don't forget to experiment with things that could really benefit your show, like adding a new segment, changing up the format, maybe having a co-host every other week. Experimenting and adding a bit of variety to your show keeps things fresh and prevents you from being bored. And the final strategy is focus on your own podcasting journey. I'm sure you've seen a lot of amazing podcasters who have done a lot of great things, but they're them and, well, you're you. So focusing on your own journey allows you to achieve the goals that you want to achieve and have fun along the way. Now, if you want to try something new, you can try recording a live podcast with actual audience members watching. If you're interested in that, go ahead and click on the link in the video description below of a video with Badr and Travis where they walk you through the pros and cons of recording with a live audience. That's it for today. Thanks for listening, and as always, keep podcasting.